When I first made my survival world, every time I had to go to places such as my cow farm or cave, I had to walk over it. Now, the problem is walking is not that effective, and I didn't want to take so much time to get to those places. And moving my base was not an option. It's just so beautiful, look at it. So I took some time to develop a system to move me to my destination more efficiently. And what I came up with was, ta-da! There you have it, the Minecart. Essentially a car that runs on rails. A simple solution for all my problems, right? And at first, it worked great, just what I wanted. And from then on, I expanded my rail network and lived happily for the rest of my life. Just kidding, I got a horse as soon after I abandoned my rail network, and not long after that, I finally got my Elytra, which meant that I just stopped using any infrastructure altogether. Now, what happened here? You see, because of one single item, you don't have to build any paths, bridges, tunnels, or any infrastructure. And this made me see how outdated some methods of transportation are compared to others. It made me realize how flawed the transportation system is. And it made me wonder, what is wrong with this system? How can a seemingly unexpected feature affect how we play the game? And how can we fix it? Especially the minecart. How can we fix the minecart and provide it with different uses while at the same time not devaluing the other types of transportation? When I think about making transportation great again, two particular items come into my mind. The first one is the Elytra. The Elytra has been a controversial item for a long time. People have complained that it hinders creativity, as you don't have to build anything to get around. And sure, some of us don't use the Elytra for everything and actually build stuff because it's fun. Like, literally, I have a rail system in my world, and I use it because it's fun. But technically speaking, horses and minecarts are slow if you have an Elytra. I'm not saying we should get rid of the Elytra because, well, look, I use it a lot for exploration. And it's fun, don't get me wrong. But why even bother building paths or rail systems if they're considerably slower? The problem is not the Elytra itself, but the rockets that it uses. That is the actual problem when it comes to the Elytra. People have been arguing that if Mojang nerfed the rocket by making it more expensive and not farmable anymore, it would make it better. In my opinion, it's honestly pretty easy to make a creeper farm, but that's not a good idea. Nerfing Elytras is not gonna do anyone favors. That's just gonna make exploration more frustrating. Actually, when Mojang added the Elytra, they were bad. And I mean it, you couldn't even use fireworks. And over time, with community output, Mojang made the Elytra what it is now. If they reversed all these changes, we would return to the same problem again. We will complain that the Elytra is not good enough. The same happened when they were initially added. And another thing is that we cannot forget it is an end game item. It has to be good. It is quite literally an end game item. And the average player is not gonna build gigantic farms for gunpowder and paper to have 1 trillion rockets. So not everyone's gonna be fine with it every time. So what can we do if nerfing Elytras is not the right choice? Buff the minecart. But not just buff it to make it more fast, because if we just make them faster, we'll have to balance everything out to accommodate for that change, and in turn, making everything faster, and making everything really fast. So how can we fix them? Now, minecarts really come in handy when it comes to automatic farms and recreational uses, just for fun. But how about transportation and player movement? The minecarts can do an okay job, but not enough to make it worth it. So how can we do it? So let's start by adding different rails that make them more useful for player and cargo transportation. Let's not change the speed of the normal rails and minecart, because it would ruin farms and anything that relies on speed. The original items could be useful for early game, but it could be better. So let's add a progression system. You could craft simple but slow wooden rails to get around. For instance, to get to your mine without having to walk at all. And as you progress more and more in the game, you could get better rails. This will allow transporting mobs from place to place with only needing wood. It's slow but great for early game if you don't have enough materials to make normal rails. And great for transporting my villagers to my rehabilitation center. Next, let's add push carts. Easier to maneuver and craft than a normal minecart, but you'll have to keep pushing it to move. Great for small distances without needing any type of external power, like this infernal opening in the earth. Now that I mentioned push carts, let's add different types of minecarts. Let's add a faster version of a minecart, but easier to derail when it gets too fast. Great for straight routes, but you'll have to slow it down in curves if you don't want to derail. And lastly, let's add campfire minecarts to move them without having to use fuel. Now to finish it off, we could add some small features such as the chain links. With them, we could make minecart trains and transport items easier. Let's also add a locking rail that locks the cart into place so it doesn't keep going. And turn rails with intersections for better optimization. Now, after doing all these changes, people would criticize me for making the Elytra useless, which is not true, by the way. I'm just gonna show you what I actually did. What I did is make the minecart useful again for medium to long distances, to get from place to place. That is what originally it was for. And now, I'm sure you wouldn't lay 1,000 rails to get to the nearest woodland mansion. So Elytras are still useful for most cases, such as exploring. But we made the minecart great again for cargo and transportation. And yeah, I could have made a 40-minute video about this, but honestly, I don't want to for now. So as of now, I will disappear for some weeks and then re-emerge from my grave some other time. Until the next time, people.